Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Megan.
And I'm Sierra. We are really excited for this video because Megan and I are doing our first booktube video.
I know, we've been getting into books a lot this year and we've been consuming, book talk TikToks. We've also been sometimes looking at book videos on YouTube. And a lot of you guys have even reached out to us and have wanted us to keep you updated on different books that we're reading. So we thought we might as well kind of dive in. Maybe making some of our own book related videos on YouTube. So this is going to be maybe our first one. If you guys hate it, it could be the only one. But if you guys like it,
then we can do more. So we thought we'd start off with a top 5 books that we've read so far this year and kind of run through them from 5 being still obviously really good because it's in our top 5, but we're going to work our way to number 1, which is our favorite book that we've read this year. Before we get into today's video, we want to thank today's sponsor, which is Ana Luisa.
If you guys have been watching our channel for a while, then you know that we've partnered with Ana Luisa plenty of times in the past, and we really love their jewelry company.
Jewelry all the time.
Yeah, I always have usually one of their necklaces on, and today I'm actually sporting a new one, but
I am as well.
We usually have just a staple necklace that we go back to, and sometimes it switches because I used to have one that was just plain gold that I wore for a long time, and then I got a newer one, and then that one I've worn for a long time, so it's just fun to have that staple. I like having the gold, but they have a lot of different metal options to choose from.
What I like about Ana Luisa is that their jewelry is timeless, classic, there's fun designs and stuff. I'm wearing this cute little daisy set that's got a little bracelet and necklace combo, but it's also just so laid back and chill.
I love dainty.
I can wear this with anything and no one would bat an eye, and it just goes with everything.
I wear it with my sweatshirts and leggings. I wear their jewelry with a nice outfit where I'm actually trying to look nice, and it looks good either way. If I'm wearing a necklace but I'm still wearing just a workout tank and leggings, I still feel it elevates the look, it's casual chic.
But then if you're already dressed up, it's just that extra added touch that you need. Megan and I also really appreciate how much effort Ana Luisa puts into being a sustainable jewelry company.
And one of the ways that they're able to do that is all their products they release in limited batches, so that way they're not producing a bunch of excess waste. Another fun fact is that any of the diamonds that are in their jewelry are lab grown, so it doesn't require any mining.
Ana Luisa is also the first direct-to-consumer jewelry brand to be carbon neutral.
So what that means is that any of the CO2 that they produce while they're making their jewelry or when they're shipping orders, they counterbalance that with the same amount of oxygen as well. So that's just another way that they are a sustainable company.
So we really hope you guys check out Ana Luisa by clicking the link in the description.
They have amazing jewelry, so we would highly recommend.
You can use our code MEGANSIER10 for 10% off.
And thank you so much to Ana Luisa for sponsoring today's video.
Alright, so we are each going to start off with our number 5 book. Also, Megan and I have read a lot of the same books, and so there's going to be, I think, a little bit of overlap in our two lists.
The same on the top 5.
I actually don't know Megan's list at all because, I can see one book right now, but you saw my list.
And some of these books I don't have in person because one of them I've been lending it to everyone, so I don't have it right now. And then another one, maybe more, I don't know. I did do a couple audiobooks, so some of them I don't have the physical copy of, so.
Yeah, there's a couple that I don't have a physical copy of as well, but we'll have some sort of picture of the book or something on screen. So, do you want to start? You want me to start?
I can start. Okay, the book that makes the 5th place spot for me out of all the books I've read this year is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I actually read this one not that long ago, and it kind of has a slower start, but once I got into it, which is probably around halfway, it wasn't bad in the first half, but it just took a little bit longer, and it really does pick up in the second half. And it really had me pretty invested. So I'm going to read the summary on the back because I just tried to explain the book myself and it did not go well. So, pretty unpopular high school senior Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend Sal Singh, who then killed himself. It was all anyone could talk about. About 5 years later, Pip sees how the tragedy still haunts her town. Now a senior herself, Pip decides to re-examine the closed case for her final project, at first just to cast doubt on the original investigation, but soon she discovers a trail of dark secrets that might actually prove Sal innocent, and the line between past and present begins to blur. Someone in Fairview doesn't want Pip digging around for answers, and now her own life may be in danger. This book had so many different characters to kind of make you wonder how could they be involved, but it didn't. It was a thing that I could process and think through, who do I think did it? Yeah. But there were really so many twists and turns that I did not expect from this book that I feel just if you were able to guess what was coming next, then good for you. But that really kept it going. So once it gets into the actual investigation part of the book, I was pretty much glued to the book because I just wanted to figure out what actually happened because none of it was making any sense to me. I was like, how does this all come together? So for that reason, I honestly was would I give all these 5 books a 5 out of 5 stars? Maybe, but I don't know. I think this one I'd give 4.5 stars. I don't like doing the 4 to 5 because that's a big jump to me. Yeah. I'd give this 4 or 4.5 stars. It was a good book.
Yeah, and I read this one too. I think when I read mysteries, I really want to be able to like try and figure it out myself. I've read a couple of books that are like mysteries, but they don't give you enough clues as the reader to try and figure it out, and so I like that I could kind of play along with that one. Alright, the book that I chose for the number 5 spot was They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. Okay, so I'm going to read the synopsis on the back. We here at Last Friend Inc. are collectively sorry for this loss of you. Our deepest sympathies extend to those who love you and those who will never meet you. We hope you find a new friend and value to spend your final hours with today. So that's not really like the summary, but that's just something on the back. And now we get to the summary. On September 5th, a little after midnight, Deathcast calls Mateo Torres and Rufus Emeterio, I don't know if that's how you say his name, to deliver some bad news. They're going to die in less than 24 hours. Mateo and Rufus are total strangers, but for different reasons. They're both looking to make a new friend on their end today. The good news is there's an app for that. It's called Last Friend, and through it, Rufus and Mateo meet up for one final epic adventure to live a lifetime in a single day.
Okay, so I haven't read this book. Are you saying that everyone gets told when they're going to die?
Yes.
And is it like I don't know if
you
this
get a phone call.
Is it like, is it natural causes, or is it just like
anything? They are dying that day. Anyone who's dying that day gets a phone call from Deathcast and says, "You're dying today." And so I like this book. It was very slow to start. I think like the first 50 pages or so, I was like, come on, like let's get into it. But then it goes like their whole adventure of like how they meet. It switches POVs, which I kind of like when books do that between the two characters, and also includes some other POVs of some other like side characters, and you can kind of see some overlap within the timelines of some other characters. And I mean, it's not a spoiler, but like they do both die at the end, and so it's just like the whole time I'm reading, one, you want to know how they die, and two, you're like, no, don't die. Like, I like these characters. Like, how are you gonna die? So, I thought it was very good.
Out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
I think 4 out of 5.
My book that gets the number 4 spot is not with me in person. We again loaned it out to friends and family so they could read it themselves. It's a good book. But it's Verity by Colleen Hoover. 3 of my 5 books are by Colleen Hoover. I just really like. I've read a lot of her books, and honestly, there's plenty of the books that are not making the list because like they're all good, but some of them I like more than others. I feel like they're either like super good, like really stand out to me, or they're just kind of like not gonna make like the top 5.
Yeah,
anytime soon. So I'm gonna read the summary and then explain a little bit more about what we thought about it, because Sierra also read it, but it's not her top 5.
It's not.
So, in Verity, Loan Ashley is a writer who's offered the opportunity to complete the last 3 novels of a best-selling book series because the author, Verity Crawford, is unable to do so for medical reasons. When Loan moves into the Crawford house to go over Verity's notes, Loan sees that Verity has been left largely unresponsive after a car accident. She also learns that Verity's 2 twin daughters died in the months preceding Verity's accident. Loan soon finds herself attracted to Jeremy, Verity's husband, and she also discovers an autobiographical manuscript by Verity which contains dark secrets about Verity's life. This book, especially once you get to the very, very end and you're given a potential plot twist to the book, but in my mind,
like,
it wasn't a definitive
You're
plot
left
twist.
to decide like what you think happens.
Because you're basically reading this manuscript that has just a bunch of really dark, not good secrets about Verity, the author, but then I don't know. I don't want to give you guys any like hints or anything, but you're just left wondering at the end like what
really
if you would agree with what the characters did or not, and you get to decide that because there's no right or wrong. You don't know what the outcome was or if the things. Anyways, yeah, that's all I want to give you guys because I don't want to give too much away. But Sierra and I ended up kind of weirdly coming to like the same conclusion. I feel like to make ourselves feel better because we wanted to like stay connected to the characters that were actually in the book and alive and were the main characters. But at the other end of the spectrum, you could end up really disliking the main characters as well. So really just kind of depends on how you end up viewing the final couple chapters.
Yeah, I also like this one because prior to reading this, I had read a ton of Colleen Hoover books. You guys know Colleen Hoover is like romance author all the way. And this was like a little bit of a twist.
Yeah.
It had romance, obviously, but it was also kind of more of a thriller and like got into that realm.
There's literally moments I was reading
twist.
sometimes at night where like I was sometimes like nervous. That's a little dramatic, but like there's just like a creepy moment where I was like, if something ends up happening, I'm really not gonna like it
I'm
right now. So that was like, there's a couple of moments like that in the book, but it was good. I like thrillers like Sierra was saying, so this was kind of like a good mix between thriller and romance combined together by an author I know and love, so it was good. I would probably give it 4.5 to 5 stars. I'm really like, it's hard for me to decide, like, yes, it gets a 5, absolutely. So
Alright, the book that took my number 4 spot is The 7.5 Deaths of
the book
Evelyn
that took her
Hardcastle.
months to read.
I got this book forever ago, like years ago when I decided I was going to be a reader, but then I never actually read it. And it's a thick book too. It's like 400 and something pages, so that's why I was also like, this is gonna take a while to read. But I finally decided that before I could go and buy some other books, I had to read this one. So I'm gonna read the synopsis on the back. This is like another one of like, it's like a summary separate from like a separate thing. So it has the rules of Blackheath. Evelyn Hardcastle will be murdered at 11 p.m. There are 8 days and 8 witnesses for you to inhabit. We will only let you escape once you tell us the name of the killer. Understood? Then let's begin. And then there's a like secondary summary, I guess. Evelyn Hardcastle will die every day until Aiden Bishop can identify her killer and break the cycle. But every time the day begins again, Aiden wakes up in the body of a different guest, and some of his hosts are more helpful than others. This one was like an absolute like mind-bending read in the sense that it challenged me as a reader, because like from here you can tell that like, he inhabits different hosts to like experience the day in different bodies, but I don't think this is like a spoiler, but like it's the same day. So it's like him in these bodies, but it's the same day, so he can like interact with himself.
That's what I was wondering.
But half the time he doesn't even know, because it's like not until later that he's like in that body that he like, it's wild. And not to mention the time aspect, because he can like go from one day to another day and then back to a different day, like when he falls asleep. And so it's like, it's just absolutely wild.
I haven't read this one either, if I look confused.
It's absolutely wild to like go back to be like, oh, he's in this host on this day at this time, and like remembering like what happens before that, like what led to where he's at now. Like it really is challenging in that sense, where like keeping it all together can be tough. But that being said, it was very worthwhile, and I thought it was a very interesting read. I applaud the author for having like, I don't know what sort of like board he had to have to like make all this make sense, but I thought it was very interesting, and I haven't read anything like it, so I would give this 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Alright, the next book, this is making my number 3 spot, and it's November 9 or November 9th by Colleen Hoover.
This is my number 2, so I'm just gonna kind of jump in.
This is a good book. When I got this book, because this was my first Colleen Hoover book, I literally could hardly put it down. I just was like, if I want to have fun, I'm gonna read the book, because like that's how good it was in my opinion. Like I would maybe give this 5 stars, honestly.
I would.
So I'm gonna read the summary and then we'll talk about it. Fallon meets Ben, an aspiring novelist, the day of her scheduled cross-country move. The untimely attraction leads them to spend Fallon's last day in LA together, and her eventful life becomes the creative inspiration Ben has always sought for his novel. Over time and amidst the various relationships and tribulations of their own separate lives, they continue to meet on the same date every year, until one day Fallon becomes unsure if Ben has been telling her the truth or fabricating a perfect reality for the sake of the ultimate plot twist. Can Ben's relationship with Fallon and simultaneously his novel be considered a love story if it ends in heartbreak? So, when I first picked this book up at the bookstore and I was reading through it, I was intrigued by the concept that they only meet, like I was intrigued by the concept, oh, like they only meet once a year. But at the same time, I was kind of like, am I going to like that as a reader where I'm only getting one day a year apart? But it works so well in this book.
Switch POVs. We already talked about how we love that in a book.
It switches POVs, and it also just makes it like each year, like something interesting happens. Like I feel like it just jam packs all of the action into like a really good,
like what, 5 or 6 years that this takes place over? Like
it's 5 or 6 years, but you're only getting like literally a day at a time. So there's only like literally 5 days of stuff on here.
I know, which you'd think like would be unbelievable to be like, well, there's no way they're in love, but you know, she makes you believe it.
She sells it. So this is a really good book. I loved it, and I think that you guys would enjoy it. So
I obviously loved it too because it was my number 2 book. I feel like this book and then another one of Colleen Hoover's books, which I don't know if you
Confess.
But yeah,
it's not on my list.
That is like very similar to this, and like those two are probably my favorite Colleen Hoover books still, because I just thought they were perfect.
Because she hasn't read my number 1.
I'm going to though. That's on my list.
That's going to be the new favorite.
So my number 3 book I don't have with me because I read it online. Actually found like a PDF somewhere on the internet.
Desperate.
But it is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. So I read 3 Agatha Christie books, and this one was by far my favorite because Agatha Christie obviously is a very famous mystery like writer, and so my thing when I read a mystery, I already said, is I want to be able to follow along. And Murder on the Orient Express and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, very, very difficult for me to follow along with, so I didn't really like them that much. They were okay, but
this one she liked enough to have us watch the Amazon thing thing, which was actually, that was good too. So if you liked the book,
So I'm
also need
gonna
to watch.
read the summary that I found on the internet, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. 1939, Europe teeters on the brink of war. 10 strangers are invited to Soldier Island, an isolated rock near the Devon coast. Cut off from the mainland with their generous hosts, Mr. and Mrs. U.N. Owen, mysteriously absent, they are each accused of a terrible crime. When one of the party dies, suddenly, they realize they may be harboring a murderer among their number. The tension escalates as the survivors realize the killer is not only among them, but is preparing to strike again and again. And again and again and again. So I just like could not stop reading this because it was something that I could follow along with. There were a ton of characters still, like her other books, but for some reason I found that these characters were easier to like keep a hold of like, oh, this person is like this person. I don't know. It was easier to keep straight. And I was trying to like work my way through like in my little brain of trying to figure out who the killer was. And I guarantee if you read this book, you will not be able to figure it out because it's impossible. And I love that in a book. I love being stumped.
I also feel like was it on Amazon?
Something like that.
Wherever you can watch it, it was done very well. And being someone that hadn't read it and I just decided to watch the video version, I had no idea. Like, you can't figure out.
You can't. You literally can't.
Is the thing. And then when you find out how they did it or who it actually is, it just says like, what?
Mm-hmm.
My number 2 book is The Silent Patient by...
That's my number 1.
Oh, really? That's fun.
Yes.
It's by Alex Michaelides. I don't fully know how you say his last name. This was one of the first books I read this entire year, and it is a thriller book. It's so good. I was completely, like, the twist happened before my eyes. I've never had that experience happen. And
that is why it's my number 1.
Because I kid you not, I was reading the page and I literally turned to Sierra.
It's like the wheels turning.
I turned to Sierra and I was like, Sierra, like the plot twist just happened in my book.
Yeah.
Like I could say that. It was just, I had to like take a moment. I was just like rethinking the entire book. So I'm going to read the summary and we'll talk more about it. Alicia Berenson's life is seemingly perfect. A famous painter married to an in-demand fashion photographer, she lives in a grand house with big windows overlooking a park in one of London's most desirable areas. One evening, her husband Gabriel returns home late from a fashion shoot, and Alicia shoots him 5 times in the face and then never speaks another word. Alicia's refusal to talk or give any kind of explanation turns a domestic tragedy into something far grander, a mystery that captures the public imagination and casts Alicia into notoriety. The price of her art skyrockets, and she, the silent patient, is hidden away from the tabloids and spotlight at the Grove, a secure forensic unit in North London. Theo Faber is a criminal psychotherapist who has waited a long time for the opportunity to work with Alicia. His determination to get her to talk and unravel the mystery of why she shot her husband, it takes him down a twisting path into his own motivations, a search for the truth that threatens to consume him. So, that's kind of the general gist, I guess.
So this book kind of has like a split POV in a sense because you have Theo's point of view in like the present, and then you have like Alicia's diaries or journals that kind of give her story in the past. And so I like that you can see both characters and like how their storylines kind of like intermingle.
I can't honestly give you guys much more other than it was a great book, and how the author chose to make this plot twist happen is very commendable. Mm-hmm. I've never read anything like it, so.
It's truly like you're reading line by line and then you're like, wait,
like,
hold on, wait. And then it happens. And
yeah, I've literally made so many people. I've made Maggie read this. I've made Haley read this. I have made my mom read this book. And everyone...
We told her dad about it.
Everyone has further suggested other people that they know read it. It's very, very good. So, would highly recommend.
Now it's just your number 1 because that was mine.
Okay, the very last book that we are going to talk about is my number 1 since The Silent Patient was Sierra's number 1. And it's Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Every single person I've seen talk about this book on YouTube, I'm pretty sure has given it a 5 out of 5 stars. So I feel like I'm in good company by liking this book. I'm going to read the summary and then I'll talk more about why I liked the book. When Tate Collins meets airline pilot Miles Archer, she knows it isn't love at first sight. They wouldn't even go so far as to consider themselves friends. The only thing Tate and Miles have in common is an undeniable mutual attraction. Once their desires are set out in the open, they realize they have the perfect setup. He doesn't want love, she doesn't have time for love. The arrangement could be surprisingly seamless as long as Tate can stick to the only 2 roles Miles has for her. Never ask about the past, don't expect the future. They think they can handle it, but realize almost immediately they can't handle it at all. So I feel like it's just like a classic forbidden love type book, and you slowly, I'm trying to remember how the book was actually written. It's different POVs of Tate and Miles, so you get a good POV both sides of the story, I guess. But then also, I don't think right away you know Miles' story, because like it's pretty hidden and like they just leave it. You don't know why he's not allowing this relationship to take place. But then later on in the book, it starts going more and more into his past, and you start figuring out like why this is such a big issue. But I feel like you're just rooting for both the characters to end up together in the end. And yeah, it was a good book. You see the growth of both of them and how they just like both want to be there but they can't. And so yeah, it was a good book.
That's on my next book to read. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let us give us any critiques of how we could make future book videos better, because
Having the books in person.
yeah, I think that as well. Otherwise, if you like this video and you want us to do more book videos, what type of book videos would you want to see? Would you want to see our least favorite books that you read, or our favorite romance books, favorite thrillers, any sort of niche book idea that you have? Let us know.
Don't forget to check out Ana Luisa. You can use code Megan10 for 10% off, or you can just click the link in the description and check it out there.
If you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe or check out our podcast. It's called According To, and it is linked down below. And I think that's all we've got. We will see you guys when we post next. Bye.
Bye.